Oh, trust everyone's well. I
Awesome.
hope everyone's well. Everyone's good. Things are happening. We're all up and about. Dojos are starting to get some good news as such. Let's keep the positive vibes and hopefully things turn out. But I've got an absolute beauty of a special guest here, guys. Sensei John Hallford, originally from Tamworth in New South, but now in the sunny side of Newcastle. Sensei John, an absolute honour to have you on and have a chat today. Thank you so much for your time. How are you?
Course, yeah, good, yeah. Considering with the with everything that's happening at the moment, the dojo being shut, and but no, things are really good, mate. I've moved to. I originally come from Tamworth, and then moved to Dubbo for a business, Domino's Pizza, and had a dojo there, and was there for 20 years in Dubbo. Beautiful place, and then just recently in the last couple of years, I've moved to sunny Newcastle. And found my myself when it comes to the martial arts, boxing and the kickboxing, back to having a dojo again.
Well, I can't wait to have a chat. I can't wait for this. I'd love you to. I break the ice with everyone with the first question, and then the ball gets going. And the most important one of all, I feel, in the martial arts journey is how did it start? Where did it start? What got you going, and if you can share with us, the floor is yours in giving us, the story behind it.
Yeah, well, the beginning was I was actually living in I had a single mum with mum had 4 boys, and we done it a little bit tough,
Sure.
and we lived in the housing commission area of Tamworth, and I was going to a school called Peel High, and I actually got myself in a situation and in a bit of a fight, and I could always I've got the red hair and I've got the temper, and I could always hold my own, but then I actually got bashed up by a few people afterwards, and a little bit bullied. So that's what turned me to the martial arts. So I just went and done a little bit of Shotokan.
Yeah.
At the time, and then I went and watched Mark Tyson, Shihan Mark Tyson, one of his classes, which my older brother was taking part in. He was doing Kyokushin and I was doing Shotokan. So I went and watched Shihan Mark Tyson, and I watched him spar his nephew, and I just was blown away by what Kyokushin offers, and that's exactly what I wanted. Like Shotokan was good for my time, but it was I wanted to fight.
Yeah.
That was my whole outlook, was to learn how to fight. I figured that if you do self-defense, even with my classes these days, we've got a great gym here in Newcastle now with about 80 students, but I'll tell the parents as soon as they come, if you ever, like a lot of kids come because they're bullied, but if you're ever going to get yourself in a situation, there's always going to be contact. So I figure that day that I went to Shihan Tyson's dojo and seen him sparring his nephew, and Christ, they were absolutely hammering each other. And I thought, this is me. This is what I want to do. And took it up from there. And I was 13, nearly 14 years old.
All right, you've answered. So you're in your teens here. You've tasted, as I say, the sweat, I guess, and seeing the way Shihan Mark Tyson. I mean, come on now, he was what an absolute gun, and I had him on earlier as well. And when you got yourself, you've been nestled, I guess, into a gi already, and had the obi with Shotokan. But what then? I always ask, like, is it something that so you're seeing it as fighting? So were you so intrigued with the great, like with going for black, or were you just someone that's like, put me in tournaments, I'm 13, and how did Shihan, Sensei Mark Tyson at the time, start guiding you and progressing you? How did you get through that stage, especially after coming off a horrendous experience of being bullied?
Yeah, no, well, I experienced I just loved the whole thing with Kyokushin. I watched a few classes, and it was how when you know that that's what you want to do, and that's where you want to go, and I was always in for contact, and I was always in for fighting. But Shihan Tyson's first, he actually trained me up till I was 20. Then I took over then. But my first fight was when I was 16. It was an actual kickboxing fight. Okay. So we were because obviously Kyokushin at the time was very, very strong, but you could only fight so often.
Yes.
Like there wasn't the ring karate, and there wasn't all that stuff that goes along in these awesome tournaments that Shihan Judd's doing at the moment, and stuff like that. It's just like there wasn't that back then. So we so our first experience in having a fight was a kickboxing fight in Coffs Harbour, and I fought a Muay Thai fighter, and I was blown away because I become on the track. I become a absolute Muay Thai lover, and it's I've been there 12 times now, and I've trained a lot and started tours with Mark Castellini back in the day. We used to do tours and go over, and we'd have an absolute ball and train the house down, and either have a fight over there or come back and fight. But that was my first introduction in fighting. And my first karate fight wouldn't have been much long after that. It was a state tournament. Yeah, so done a little bit of non-contact, but didn't enjoy it too much.
No.
More hands-on, mate. I'd like to get in there and get dirty, and then have a good old slog out. It was obviously Shihan Tyson put us in non-contact for the fact that just to get the skill of timing and movement and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, he mentioned that, and what he mentioned more so was exactly that. Getting his students as such involved in as many opportunities as he could, and you obviously grabbed it by the horns, mate, because you're 16, you're getting your first crack against the Muay Thai guy in kickboxing. So were you someone that finished that bout and went, I need more? Give me more, or were you like, what's next? What was your movements from your 16 when you were 16 to that 20-year-old period? Just training hard, loving it, getting amongst it.
Yeah, 100%. The one thing, I won the fight, but only with my legs. I had no idea how to box. It was it's actually on YouTube. It was pretty horrific. But I won the fight and got fight of the night, so I must have done all right. And I got the two biggest trophies I've ever had. And I was sitting in the this is at Coffs Harbour because I do a lot of holidaying there because I'm around that area. And I was sitting in the lounge at the front there because I was too young to go in. So with everyone was in there drinking and so forth. But I was sitting at the front with my two trophies. And the amount of people that just come up and acknowledge what I'd done that night. It was the whole of all that bullying and all that stuff that happened when I was a little bit early just went out the window because I just grew another leg. I grew another leg, and I just thought this is what I want to do, and I want to become a professional fighter.
Oh, look at that. And you've segued it nicely. You've from bullying to just training your ass off and then loving it and getting the taste of it to then having the thought and the vision, and the visualization, as I tell my students, to visualize what now, where to from here. So you visualize yourself as a pro fighter, and how did you start working towards that?
Yeah, well, I actually had my first I had my first title fight when I was about 17. So I wasn't I fought Paul. I fought a bloke, everyone knows him by the name of Paul Briggs.
Yeah.
In my second fight, I fought Paul, and that was he was obviously another Muay Thai fighter, but he had at the time he hadn't transitioned to boxing because we were only 16-year-old kids, we were only babies. But and I fought him, and I beat Paul, and then from there I'd done a lot of boxing, and I knew that and a lot of people told me, I knew that if I got my hands and the beat Paul, like he's an absolute legend, and after the good part about also fighting is you still have I still talk to him on Facebook, and
respect
a lot of my fighters like Sammy Solomon and Alex Tui and all the boys, Prince Amir, I still talk to all the time, and
legend, and
all these people that you fight, you just become really close. You just get that newfound respect. And after that fight, I found out a lot of. I didn't know much about Paul, but Shihan Mark Tyson obviously knew the quality that we had, or otherwise he wouldn't have stuck us in against. I think because Paul had about 10 fights at that stage, and I was having my second. And then Michael Maisie was supposed to fight his brother Nathan that same night, but it didn't happen because one of the boys got injured. But anyway, so after that, I knew that I could. My boxing started to improve, and I knew coming from a lot of top-notch fighters and professional fighters, they said all you got to do, mate, is get your hands right. Obviously, your legs, because of the Kyokushin. When it comes to legs, no one could even come close. So I just had to learn how to box. Yeah, once I learned how to box, well then, I could win either way.
Who helped you with that? How did you? And I say that in respect of people listening here, that have always this type of conversation inspires and motivates some people and going, shit, yeah, I've got good kicks and I did Kyokushin. What's the transition? How did you go and who helped you a little bit with fixing your hands as such? I know it's a lot deeper than that, but how did you...
The transition was actually my second pro fight was a boxing pro fight, and I fought. I was training with an old gentleman by the name of Mark Tyson. Could also box pretty good. Like he's pretty talented there as well. But I had to go further, and when it come to I had to go to Sydney because I was running out of sparring partners, and I was obviously when you spar, you're knocking your sparring partners out, and my best mate Michael Maisie, which is an absolute weapon.
Yeah, sure.
I knocked him out a couple of times. I felt bad.
Oh, yeah, no, of course.
Mark's we just used to Mark Tyson. We used to spar really hard, and that just made us very tough fighters. And back in the day, and obviously a lot of people don't spar like that these days. But what we done was I went to the first person I went to was a gentleman, and everyone knows him by the name of Bernie Hall, which is the boxer in Sydney. And one of my friends was down there. He moved to Sydney. A couple of my good mates that were close that were doing the karate with me, they actually moved to Sydney and started training with Bernie.
Yeah, right.
And I went down to Bernie and started training with Bernie. And I think it's funny because I think I've only ever touch wood, and I don't spar too much anymore. But I'm 46, but I still do a little bit with the boys. But I sparred one of Bernie's boys, which was the current New South Wales light heavyweight champion. So he's about 10 kilos heavier than me.
Yeah.
And mate, I've never ever got my ass whooped so much. I've never been normally with every spar I've had. I've always been. I can always handle the spar, right. And I was dominant. But this bloke, I don't know. I put it down to a couple of things, but this bloke absolutely bloody schooled me. And then the next day, I travelled down that day, and I was a little bit under. Obviously, when you travel, I always tell my fighters that you never travel 5 or 6 hours in a car and then jump in and have a fight, because you're just taking too much away from yourself and too much.
Yeah.
And it's just I've never done that, and all my throughout my whole fighting career, I'd always go the day before and have a good sleep and something good to eat and stuff like that. But the next day I went back, and this is what really made me. I went back to the gym, and Bernie said, "You're sparring him again," and I was like, I had a black eye and a bloody cut lip, and I said, "Oh, are you serious?" And anyway, of course, I said, Bernie was like royalty in boxing, and I said, "Oh, righto, I'll spar him again." And mate, it was totally the other way around.
Right.
So I actually whooped him, and Bernie said from that day, he said, he just had that faith in me that whatever he done in regards to turning professional, he turned me professional about 3 or 4 months after that.
And that was that's just hands. You're just going.
And that was just. Oh yeah, he would have been in a lot of trouble if I kicked him. Yeah, but no, that was only boxing. So I just
unreal.
One stage there, I just done a lot because I was always I could always kick really well, and I never had a problem when it came to a fight and kicking. I never until my retirement when I got injured pretty bad, but I was never injured in one fight that I ever had. I was beaten up a bit when I fought over in the All Japan and come second to Sakurai. I made the final, and that was my 4th trip to Japan, and that was the best result we had.
All right. This is great.
Not too far.
You've just beaten my whoa moment, which is the so.
When it comes to this, I could probably talk for about 3 hours. But But anyway, back to the boxing. Yeah, back to the boxing.
Oh no, Sensei. What I'm saying is that was the beautiful thing. So you had gone to a Japan moment. Let's get to that, and that'll be amazing because I can't wait to hear that as well, can't we, guys? So So just let's stick with how you've dominated in a way and you've got your confidence within your hands with your coach there, and then your flow has just gone into a professional level. Yeah.
Yeah, well, he turned me professional, and it was a bit of like boxing. I don't know if you know too much about boxing, but it can be a little bit dodgy.
Right.
I love all. It's just the way it is. It's the way it's always been, and it's the way it will always. But I actually got matched up, and Bernie matched me up with my first professional fight in Sydney at Marrickville, and they said to me, this bloke's Fijian. He's had 6 fights, 3 wins, 3 losses, and he hasn't fought for a little while. And I was having my first, and so they introduced me to the ring. It's on YouTube.
Yeah,
they introduced me to the ring, and then I come out having his debut in professional boxing, and it was all good. And then they introduced Nemi Riccardi, his name was, and they introduced Nemi, and he had 14 fights.
Oh,
he had 12 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss. And his only loss was to the Australian champion over 12 rounds. And I was having my first fight. I looked at Bernie, and Bernie just shook his head and said, "You'll be right." I went, and you know what? Like, this is, I suppose, in the fight game that can make or break you sometimes.
Right.
But Bernie had that trust in me to say that, you know, you can do this, mate. He watched me spar his light heavyweight New South Wales champion and actually out sparring, so he knew I was going to go well. But anyway, the first round he caught me with a big shot and woke me up, which I used to love. As soon as I got hit, I'd wake up.
Right.
And then sometimes obviously when you can't be your best in every fight. And then the second round, mate, I hit him with about 10 shots, and I got him in the corner and knocked him out. Like he hit one knee, and I was that fired up. I hit him with an uppercut when he hit one knee.
Oh.
And he sat back in the corner, and I tell you what, like, could have psyched me out too. Like Tony Mundine trained him.
Ooh.
So that was another thing. Like Choc there, and Tony Mundine trained him. And mate, I was like, anyway, he sat back, and I've hit him with an uppercut at the end, and he sat back in the corner with this like Fijian with a smile on his face, but he was knocked out.
Yeah.
And then mate, but that was my introduction to boxing. And
so you won that?
I won by knockout. Yeah, first time the bloke had ever been stopped.
Oh.
So, and then Bernie said, "I told you so." When I went back to the corner, so at that stage, mate, I could really box too. So I had a few people that text Bernie, like Shannon Taylor, to do some sparring and all that sort of stuff. And it's slowly after I had a few boxing fights. Probably my biggest mentor in boxing was a guy by the name of Roy Alexander. And he trained Josh Clemshaw, and I fought Josh in my 3rd or 4th fight.
Right. And
Josh had 8 fights, and he had 1 loss, and he lost to he lost to a really good fighter. So it was a test for me, because I did have a loss in boxing. So I experienced a loss which wasn't a loss, but again, like.
How were your breaks? So did you have like a breaks in between bouts? So 3 months off.
Yeah.
Up and about. Yeah, good. You're back to the drawing board / the hype, the energy, and get some, and then you're 3 months into it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would have been 3 or 6 months into it, and then I fought Josh Clemshaw, and what we'd done was I'd always, even when I was boxing, I'd always still train kicking. So, like Kyokushin, I was still really, like, I was only, like, I think I was a green belt in Kyokushin. So I was only sort of, I didn't grade all the time, because I was more into the fighting side of things. Course. It took me about 9 years to get my show done. But but what I'd done was that I'd probably do 3 and 3. So I'd do 3 days where I'd really work on my boxing, and 3 days where I'd have my Kyokushin.
Wow.
And so I was training like 6 days a week, and for a long time. And
wow.
And you know what, mate? I was a kid that had no money. I had nothing. I lived in housing commission, and I really commend Shihan Tyson for that, because he, when it come to fees and that, I never had any money, and he was always great when it come to that. He'd always help me out and get me through, and stuff like, I mean, I'll never forget that. He was my original trainer. So when it come to like the kicking and the boxing, all that sort of stuff, he was where the foundation come from. But back to Roy Alexander, like I started going down and training with Roy. So I fought Josh Clemshaw. Nader Hendon was his only loss. So it was a big step up, like in the boxing side of things. I dropped Josh a couple of times in the fight, and I went on to win pretty convincing in points. And so Roy and Josh were in St Mary's in Penrith. Mm-hmm. And at the time I was living in Tamworth. So I rang Roy up after I fought him. Roy was like, he was really respectful and everything. He was very surprised because they didn't know nothing about me. And I actually had the bloke that actually brought me was a bloke to Sydney, was a bloke by the name of Mick Aber, and he couldn't even do me corner because he wasn't registered. So I jumped in with someone else. So someone else done my corner, Neville Short, which I'm pretty good friends with now in Newcastle. He was one of the really big trainers in Newcastle for years. But then I rang, obviously because I didn't go to Newcastle very often. I rang Roy Alexander and said, "Oh, listen, I'd love to train with you guys. I live in Tamworth. I'm self-trained because at that time Mark had left and went back to Sydney. He back at Sydney. He had a dojo back in Sydney. So I took over the dojo when I was 20. So I was young. I was a brown belt. I wasn't even a black belt. I had the dojo, and I was trying to train and fight.
Can you share us the year there? What was it,
mate? It would have been. Oh yeah, hard to remember, mate. I was 20 years old. I'm 46, 47.
26 from now, so 1994, around there.
Yeah, around then, mate. Yeah, around then. And that was when,
Gotcha.
Yeah, that was, we'll get onto it later on, but that was when the organisation was still together.
Right.
Like Kyokushin was still all together, and I actually fought the Nationals that year when we were all together, which was great for me because I'll never forget that. Like, well, after Sosai died, obviously, if you know, Kyokushin splintered. So, but
we'll get to that.
So I started training with Roy Alexander.
Yeah.
And mate, I was training with some really top-notch boxers in Sydney, and I was holding my own easy. So I knew, and he sort of said to me, "Mate, I've watched you." Like Roy Alexander said, "You'll win a world title in kickboxing." He said, "Your hands are absolutely
hell yeah,
electrifying." Yeah, and he said, and probably the only thing I kicked myself with now is when I nearly lost my leg. In my second world title fight, I got Compartment syndrome and nearly lost my right leg. As I should have just went boxing then, but the decision I made was move to Dubbo and open a Domino's Pizza as a businessman and have a family.
Yeah. No, I get you. Well, we've skipped your first title there, but let's keep warming into it. Amazing sharing so far, Sensei. I appreciate that block there, especially because what an intense. Like for me, that felt intense. For you, that would have been just full steam ahead, as I call it. Just well done. You're on a roll. You're getting great mentorship and good support from people in the community, and the way you went, and you're now the fabric of a potential world champion. And how did you this lead us into that first title as such, and how you felt?
Yeah, well, so the first actually I held 2 world titles, but I probably should have had 3. What I'd done was I'm just trying to think the year, maybe 90, around the 95, 96. I got 2 signatures in my whole life, and one was Alex Toohey. He was the first world kickboxing champion in Australia, and the other one was Stan the Man.
Ooh.
And I got them on the night that I won the Australian title. I fought a gentleman by the name of Robert Kelly, and he actually beat Shihan Mark and then for the Australian title, and then they rang up later and said, then would you guys fight Robert Kelly? And they asked me to fight him.
Right.
And I said, I'd love to fight him. And that night I won by bloody devastating knockout, a left hook, and I knocked Robert out for it, mate. He would have been knocked out for a good 5 to 10 minutes. It was a pretty bad knockout, and I sort of and so I got revenge for Shihan Tyson. So it was good.
Yeah.
But that was that night I got 2 signatures. One was Alex Toohey, and one was Stan the Man, and then would have been about 95 or 96. They rang me up and said, "Would you fight Alex Toohey?" And I was like, "Wow, this is amazing. How good's this? And I said, so Alex at the time held the 72.5 world middleweight title. And I said, wow, I actually won a few titles before that, South Pacific and in the Continental. I fought a Russian fighter and stopped him as well. And then I said, yes, I'd love to. I spun out and I said, so automatically I said, it'll be my first crack at a world title. But they said, no, it's not for the world title. I said, oh, I said, what do you mean? How, like you said, they said, well, he's actually fighting Dale Westerman in Melbourne in 8 weeks, and he wants to fight. He wants another fight for the world title down there, and he wants a lead-up fight. And I said, oh yeah, right. So I said, no, that's fine. I'd just be honoured to fight him. I couldn't get fights at the time, struggling because my hands were all right, and I was sort of struggling getting fights. But so then I said, oh right. So what happened then was they said, oh yes, that's a catch weight at 71 kilos, and that was really light for me. And I said, what do you mean? He's world title. He's a world champion at 72 and a half, and he's like, I'm not, and you don't want me to fight him for his world title, but then you also want me to fight him at 71 kilos. I said, oh, right. Anyway, so it was a really lightweight for me. That was probably the lightest I fought at. And like as a professional fighter, not as an amateur. But so then I said, yeah, fine. I'll fight him anyway. I jumped on the scales that day. I love Alex. He actually done a lot of training with Shihan Tyson as well. But I jumped on the scales and I weighed in at 71.01. And I went and Lucy too, in June Chan, and they were all there, and they looked at Alex. They looked over at Alex in his corner and they said, oh, he's 71.01. Is that all right? And it was fine because I had underpants on. Yeah. And so and they said, oh no, we want you to come in at 71. And I went, and I thought, geez, so that's a bit tough. Like, so it was all against me. The whole fight was. So I jumped back, took my undies off, grabbed the towel, put a towel in front of me, and jumped and made 71 on the dot. So, and so everything was against me for that fight because they didn't win, mate, because they wanted Alex to either go down and fight Dale Westerman and for the world title. Yeah. Wanted to spruce it up. And anyway, so that was probably one of the hardest fights of my career. Okay. That was an absolute war. And it's on YouTube as well. Great, and great. I couldn't believe how tough he was, mate. Oh, yeah. I remember hitting him with a technique that I call K3. That's one of my kickboxing syllabus. It's a left, right, left hook, and I hit him with a right head kick. I judded him wash. And he hit him flush with the shin. Yeah. And it didn't knock him out. It did not knock him out. Mate, I went back to the corner. I sat down. Steve Scribris was doing the corner back then. Was it neck or like across here? Or
no, it was more the temple, more the head. Yeah, there's more. If it was a neck, I think. Yeah, if you hit someone with a neck kick, it would have been over and out, but because it would have cut off the circulation. But it hit him hit him right in the head because he's a little bit shorter than me. Okay. So it hit him right in the forehead, and mate, he shook it off. And anyway, there was another time in the fight when I must have hit him with, like, it's on, as I said, it's on YouTube. I hit him with about 20 or 30 punches.
The flurries, yeah.
And he just shook them off. And at the end of the fight, he's jumping around like he's hadn't had a fight. Obviously I won. I won pretty convincingly on points. Well done. And so that was my first experience in having a fight with a world champion, and it was successful. It would have been nice if it was for the world title. Claim it, yeah. And I went down and fought Dale Westerman, but it wasn't the case at that stage. So, but that's a fight game, mate. You honestly at different times you just gotta sort of be happy with what you can get, because it's really hard and the fight games. Yeah, a lot of great fighters in that time. There was I fought Louis Isafides, actually beat me in Melbourne, and he trained with Dale Westerman, and there was so many, like Sammy Solomon, and I fought Sammy twice, and there was Warren Elson, and there was so many big, Prince Amir, and obviously I was never light enough to fight JWP, which is he's probably the icon of Muay Thai in Australia, him and Khan. But there were so many great fighters in that era. It was just amazing. It was so good to be a part of that.
Yeah.
Um,
So as
yeah,
as these bouts were coming in, you know, and as you just said, some bouts were, you know, tough, because tough meaning they weren't selecting you, or you weren't a preference, and you're going through that phase, and you know, the phase of like, oh shit, I could, you know, I'd love to go against them. I could easily beat him, or would love to go, you know, like you said, against JW or whoever it may be at that time in putting on my weight. How were you going with yourself internally? Like, how were you continually just going with the flow of it, with the momentum of all of this? Were you just going, well, let's just keep going, training, working, and see what comes next? Was that your day to day?
yeah. I was always, so I was living out of Tamworth, so I was sort of, I didn't get the opportunities. Maybe if I moved to Sydney or Melbourne or something like that, I would have got a lot, like, well, I got a lot of opportunities anyway, because once Tarek Solak signed me up, I started, like, didn't matter where, like, I actually took a Fox show. That he rang me up and said, "Oh, listen, I want you to fight after Dakotas. And I want you, like this is after me comeback. I went to Melbourne and hooked up with Tarek and
Yep.
I'm trying to think. Anyway, the see how my leg was after I'd nearly lost it. 2 years after, I went to Melbourne and got it checked, and Tarek's, after I beat Prince, Tarek signed me up. So I got a lot more opportunities then.
All right.
But back to the question, like, you were like coming up through the ranks. It was hard because I didn't have a top notch promoter. But once I got Tarek, like, Tarek rang me up and said, "I want you to fight again. Your leg's right. Let's go." And I said, "Yeah." So I went to Melbourne and I said, "Mate, I want to take a Fox show to one of my country towns."
Yep.
And he rang me up and said, "Mate, let's do it." So he gave me the option. I was living in Dubbo at the time, and I probably for about 3 or 4 years. I had a Domino's Pizza there, so it was great for business because
it would have been.
So I took a Fox. So Tarek and myself done a Fox show in Dubbo at the Civic Centre, and first time Fox Sport had ever gone to Dubbo. So it was massive. It was huge, and that's, you're right about, it's hard to get there, but once you get there and you can tie up with someone like Tarek, like the opportunities just open up.
Yeah, very good. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how my fighting went. Like, it was a hard slog, mate, for years. Would have been 10 years of absolute, like, even when I was fighting, I always worked a job as well.
Yeah.
A lot of them boys that I fought, like, some of them didn't work, so they could just rely on training 100%. But I had to work, So, but that was all right. It didn't make a difference. I still won a world title, and when I worked and had a family, and it was hard and tiring, mate. But I got there.
Oh, inspiring. Yeah, very inspiring. I can't, we're all listening, and I normally, after when we post this afterwards, I put the links up of some of the bouts of some of the people I speak to. So I look forward to, I'll put a couple of them up as well, just so we all get a bit of goosebumps when we watch it after hearing it from you.
Yeah.
Sensei, you mentioned your, thank you for sharing all that. That's quite, again, I try to respect the guys that we have. Yes, we could talk for 3 hours, but the luxury of what I'm doing here is first and foremost, like we said, highlighting, some of these great things that you've done, and we appreciate you sharing them, and respecting that, we've got an hour or so, because later on we can tap into some other stuff in deeper detail, like some of the other Shihans want to, but in this period here with you, we just appreciate your time first and foremost. So we catch you while we can. The next one of my seconds, one was, like you gestured, your showdown in Kyokushin. So, you've got these things happening left, right, and center, and then, within that 9-year block, you've got your showdown. How did you, get it as such, because of all your other commitments? And you had that, full commitment to the fighting side. Were you excited about it? Was it something you were leaning towards? How did that come about with someone like yourself at that time? Because you were very unique in doing what you were doing than compared to other students.
Yeah, so basically when Shihan Tyson left and I was 20, I was a brown belt. I was actually first Q, and I took over the dojo, and to be honest with you, I don't know how I done it. I honestly don't know how. I self-trained. I travelled to Sydney for boxing sparring on the weekend and travel home, which was a 10-hour round trip.
There you go.
And this is just all little like field of the fight, a
become where you want to get. And I mean, and a lot of fighters, you hear a lot of fighters from overseas do this all the time, and it's what makes you or breaks you, and it made me. But and then anyway, back to the showdown was I always wanted to be a showdown.
Oh, cool.
It was probably, if not the most important thing, probably even more important, or it would have been on par with winning a world title, and
wow.
you know, and so it was something I'd done, and I'd done it self-trained, and I actually went down and I don't know, you wouldn't remember, Henshi Taylor,
of course,
was Shihan's trainer, and I actually went down and done my grading at Hombu in Sydney for my black belt grading. Yeah, and I think Henshi so much because he was such a inspirational man in my career. He actually, like the first time I went to Japan was with Ishii, right. But Henshi took me the other time. So it was when we represented Australia, and I had my most successful trip with Henshi when we come second to Sakurai over there. But that's where I got it done at Hombu, which was really important for me because I was actually with that organisation. So for me to go there, and that was actually Hombu before everyone broke up too. So for me to get it there was awesome. Yeah, it was a big highlight in my career for sure.
Oh, that's cool. That's great. That's good to hear. And you segued at your trip, and let's go into. I mean, your first trip was with Ishii, like you said. You're happy to share that, but more so, the way you saw overseas as such now. Japan and the tradition and what was going on. How were you grasping all of that as well?
Yeah. So the first trip was like Ishii took us. And that was when we were all together. We fought out the nationals, and I'll never forget this because we were still all together, and it really made me feel like I was Australian champion.
Yeah.
So that year, 93 or 4 by memory. I think Sorsai come the year before, so I didn't get the fight in front of him. But and then he passed away 94.
Yep.
Yeah. So he didn't actually get to see me fight, but I won that nationals. Kenji Midori got to see me fight a few times. I've become closer to Midori. He was my favourite fighter as well because he's a lightweight.
Yeah.
I was actually bloody heavyweight now, but I was a lightweight. And that year was awesome, mate, because that was our first trip, like our first selection trip to go to Japan.
Right.
And Gary, like I won the lightweight.
Yes. So let's reel off the names here. Yeah, Gary. Yeah.
Gary O'Neill won the middleweight, and Wally won the heavyweight. And that was when we were all together, and I was still a brown belt. And it was unheard of because I beat the two former, like the 93, 92 champion. I beat Dominic Hopkins.
Yep.
And I beat, that sort of spoiled the party because I think Cameron Quinn would have had the whole lot of them.
Trifecta, yeah.
Three of them. So, but yeah, that was the first year I got to go to Japan, and it was a hard year because that's when they split then, and I actually went with a bloke by the name, which has become one of my best friends, is Frank Russo.
Yep.
I went with Frank Russo, Mladen Pekic, and Daniel Trifu, and me represented Australia that year, and that was in the sixth world tournament. That's my memory. Too many punches in the head, mate.
That's all right. So fifth. Yeah. Fifth was in 95. Now I'm getting a bit. Yeah. Okay. We'll go from there.
It might have been the fifth. Yeah, it might have been the fifth. Whichever one was in the year after we won the nationals. Yeah, okay. That was like that year.
Yep.
We ended up going already then. Sorry, there, mate.
Yeah.
Oh, she came.
No. You're right.
Yes,
go for it.
Yes. Yeah, so we got chosen to go, and Ishii was a fine man when he was alive. He was one of my favourite Ishiis. I think my hardest sparring partner and hardest sparring was always going to his dojo and sparring Frank Russo. He was an absolute machine. And him and Gary O'Neill had a couple of wars. They were really. I think by memory they fought twice and both won one each.
Right.
And that was probably that was probably one of my only regrets in Kyokushin, is that I didn't get the chance of the fight Gary. But yeah, I sort of had that, like
but back then, like Gary was an absolute superstar. And he was doing the Ushi over, and he I would have loved to bloody.
I was going to
like
say,
to share the match with Gary at one stage. It would have been bloody just awesome. But he was one of my favourites, Gary, and that year, like he won, and Wally was an absolute machine, and he won it, and we got to go, and that I think it was really hard that year because we split, and then the Australian team that Ishii took was what I said, like me, Frank, Daniel, and Latin. And it was really hard that year because our first fight was, so they put me, Australian lightweight champion, up against a European lightweight champion, and they put Frank Russo up against the European middleweight champion.
Jeez.
And so we had a really hard draw, and Frank lost his fight, and I beat the European lightweight champion after 2 extensions. So I was bashed up. then I fought. I think it was Miyake back then. In the round 2 of the world tournament.
Miyake.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I fought him in round 2, and he beat me just on decision. I didn't get stopped, but it was just a decision, and it's hard to win if it's not convincing over there. You know?
Yeah.
So that was my first trip, and that was memorable. I remember. I'll tell you a little story about the Japanese businessmen.
Yeah.
After the fight, we went back to like a bar, and it was really small, and they just like there was Ishii and a few of his businessmen, and like there would have been about 20 of us anyway. We drank, we were eating and drinking and having a great time, and then one of the businessmen walked up and popped the pint glass of beer on the table in front of me.
Yeah.
And then she goes, "Oh, he loved the way you fought. He wants you to drink that." And he put some money down.
All right.
And I went, "Oh, what's that?" And she goes, "Just drink it." He goes, "This is like anyway." So he said, "You scull that, and I'll give you. You give me. I think it was $150 Australian.
We'll take it.
The skull one. Yeah. So I did. So she said, "Yeah, just drink it. Drink it." So I drank it. And being an Aussie boy, you know what it's like. We can scull a beer, and then it would have been low. We had a brilliant night that night with all these businessmen, all these Japanese businessmen, and then it would have been like later on in the night. He's put 2 in front of me, and anyway, so by the end of the night, we all had a fair few drinks, but it was $700. I paid for everyone. I paid for everyone's meal and everyone's drinks and everything.
Good.
Yeah, so and that was just and that was just a really like they were really Ishii's circle of people over there were beautiful people, mate. They were amazing. You know, I love the Japs. Like, yeah, the Japs. I love the Japs. They're just beautiful people. I mean, the second time I went over there, I placed 6th. I got in the top 8, and obviously Danya Temashwari and placed 6th, and I stopped a couple of people.
Is that an All Japan?
That was an All Japan. Yeah, that was an All Japan. Yeah. I only ever fought in the one world tournament, but the other ones are all Japans. But yeah, so I come 6th in that one, and I stopped a couple of people with axe kicks. So at the end of the tournament, I had a man like I'm really shocking with names because I remember faces, but names is hard. But I had a businessman come up, and he lined up like 3 dojos, and I signed the back of their gis on it with a black text. I couldn't believe it. Like Hunchy Taylor said, "No, sign them." I said, "I can't sign their gis. They'll have it. And Hunchy said, and he said, "No, sign them. He's never seen he's never seen."
Wow.
Yeah, so I felt like I was Andy Hug for a second.
Fan favourite. Yeah, that's it. And that's all it takes.
Hug's like that.
No, I do. No, I know. Yeah, we've seen that when we've been to tournaments. When they love one of your fighters or love your fight, they tell you, and they come up and they touch you, and all sorts very good, and you're like, oh, okay, no worries, all good, and then they like seeing, how you recover as such afterwards at the sayonara parties or at the establishments, as they call it. Come to establishment, and you just get shit faced.
They get you back to there. I had some great trips to Japan. They were awesome, and it's a crazy experience because the last time I went to Japan, I travelled about 5 hours in the car to get to the tournament.
Oh.
and it just like build up area the whole time. It was just a spin out. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Like how, like people, a lot of old people, because of what happened in the past, like they're really against Japanese people. Like I had a couple of people even when I trained in Tamworth come up and say, what style do you do? And as soon as I said Japan, they just went off their bloody no.
Yeah.
I said, mate, you got your idea. You need to go there and experience what it's like down to people. And obviously you can fit Japan into New South Wales twice. So it's a tiny country that need more land, mate. They need more space. God love them. But 121 million people, I think, is in Tokyo, in Japan, and we've got 25 in Australia.
Yeah, there's like 20 odd in Tokyo, and there's 25.
Yeah. Just tell me I'm doing the interview, mate. Yeah, sorry, mate. The phone is
no. All good. Hey, that's amazing, Sensei. So can you give us a bit of an idea of when this, not to rehash too much, and if it's okay with your leg, what are the,
yes.
the
So it happened so 2001, I fought. So for my first world title, I fought Prince Amir.
Yeah.
And that was when I knocked Prince out. That's on YouTube. We've become really good mates after that. I actually trained with him for a couple of fights after that. Cool. And it's like, as I say, like once you fight someone, you just find a newfound respect. And he's one of my favourites, along with Sammy Solomon. And I fought Prince and I stopped him in the 6th round, and it was the first time he'd ever been stopped in Australia. Right. I don't know whether it's the first time he's ever stopped, right. But he obviously they thought they were going to win. It was at Star City in Sydney.
Oh wow!
And and that was the day that Tarek found me. Like after because Prince was his main boy. He had about 13 fights in Australia and was undefeated.
Yeah.
And I think his last 3 fights that I watched him, because I had to pull out once, I had a broken hand, bloody bouncing in Tamworth country music once. I broke my hand, so I had to pull out of the fight with him the first time. Yeah. So then the second, when I fought him, I actually watched him fight a few times before I fought him. So I thought, I can beat this. I can beat this bloke. And anyway, stopped him in the 6th. Tarek signed me, and then that was my second world. That was my first world title, because I didn't get a world title when I fought Alex. And then the second world title was Warren Elson.
Okay. Now
Warren, I don't know if you know too much about Warren, but mate, he's one of the toughest dudes you could ever come across. He was always underrated, and he actually stopped. He stopped Gherkin Ozcan, stopped Dale Westerman, stopped them all, mate. And then I just couldn't get fights after I fought Prince. So I said, I'll fight him. So we fought. We fought 12 rounds, and I fought a bloke by the name of John Conway 6 weeks earlier, and I broke my foot and dislocated my knee. I had dud knees, I'd probably done my knees. I'd probably done my knees about 6 times each.
6 weeks. So I did pre-world title bout.
6 weeks, yeah. So I did not kick one kick in the lead up to the world title against Warren Elson.
Shit.
And I had my right foot was all needled up, and I had a cortisone shot in it the day before.
Yeah.
And my knee wasn't too bad. I was trained on the Gold Coast for that one, and so I do a lot of beach training, but I didn't kick at all, so all I done was box. So anyway, I fought Warren Elson, and he just fit and kicked like a machine.
Mm-hmm.
And it went to 12 rounds,
wow.
and I won on the decision. Obviously, I outboxed him pretty easy, but when it came to the kicks, I couldn't kick with him because he sort of I had that broken leg and that. So, but after the fight, I had a small cork in my thigh.
Yeah.
And then it would have been 6 weeks later. Oh, sorry. It would have been about a week to 2 weeks later. I was sitting down organising a tournament back in Tamworth.
Yeah.
Organising a show, and I got up really fast, and the muscle was actually torn.
Yeah.
And when I got up, it was really cold. It actually separated, and I got internal bleeding called Compatron syndrome.
Yeah.
And I got they rushed me in. After about 3 or 4 days, my leg was like 3 times the size, and they rushed me in the theatre. I lost a pulse in my foot.
So
they said, listen.
Yeah, you didn't know. You've just stayed at home and just kind of did the Kyokushin shuffle as such and just bided it.
Mate, mate, plenty of times, especially when I fought in Japan, I'd have the Kyokushin shuffle. But I didn't realise how bad it was. And then when it kept swelling up, like I went to hospital a few times, and I was crying like a baby. I've never experienced anything like it. And then they rushed me in the theatre and said, listen, we're losing your pulse in your foot. We're going to have to take your leg off.
and they said we can either release the blood. We don't know what's going to happen when we take you in the theatre. So they knocked me out, took me in the theatre, and they said, the doctor said, it'll be about a 5-inch scar. I come out with a 19-inch scar on my right thigh. I'll show you one day when I knock up. It's good. It's a good wall. It's a good scar. And they laid me in hospital for 2 days because they couldn't close it. But I didn't lose my leg. That's the main thing. They laid me in hospital for 2 days, and I had my leg open for 2 days with a bandage on it.
Yeah.
And then a doctor by the name of Dr. Ruff, of all things. Yeah, Ruff. They said he's going to close it up or skin graft you.
Yeah.
I went, oh well. Anyway, Dr. Ruff, I become good mates with in Dubbo. He took me in the theatre and shut it. So, and then it was 2 years later that I made a 2 years later that I made a comeback. And the first fight, I had a boxing fight. Then I fought Sniper, Chris Johnson on Fox Sport out at Dubbo and the Fox Show. So
wow.
After that, yeah. So that was 2 years later. So I wasn't the same. It's on YouTube, but I wasn't the John Hallford that I was.
That's about 2003 now, early 2000s. Yeah.
That would have been my little boy now, little John Jr. Little John Jr.'s. I've got two beautiful kids now, Connor and John. And Connor, like John Jr. is a really good soccer player. That's why he moved to Newcastle.
Ah, cool.
And Connor was a really good soccer player too. But he's jumped the fence and gone to rugby league. He loves a little bit more. He's like his dad. He loves a little bit more contact. He loves the contact. So he's like John doesn't fight, but the older boy, he's 17. He's 16. He's just about to turn 17. He doesn't fight, but the young one does. So he's actually sparring and everything, and he's got his ninth Q and he done his gradings with Shihan Jordan, which graded me for me son done, and which I've been associated now with ever since I had 9 years off and I come back. Ever since I come back, he was in Parks.
Yeah.
I started a friendship with Darren Jordan, mate. He is just an absolute champion. If you ever want to do something with him, mate, he's just.
No, we are.
He's awesome, mate. He really knows his stuff, and he graded me for my third dan, and I actually had to go to hospital after that.
Oh.
So I had a bit. Yeah, it was a hard grading, but obviously you know that we're all with Judd now. So it's great affiliation. Like Judd's been the Kyokushin. You know, he's just the backbone of Kyokushin. He's done the Hombu. He's done the Ushi Dushi. He's done the 100 man. He's an absolute legend bloke as well, which you'd know anyway. So but I'm great to be a part of Jakara now, which is awesome.
Good on you.
Yeah,
that's cool.
That was my second world title. I nearly lost my leg, and I had about 9 years. I had about 9 years off after I had that fight. I got a bit sick actually, mate. I just struggled a bit with retirement.
Yeah,
and which a lot of the people who could relate with that probably listen to this is that I couldn't really handle that transition, so I had about 9 years off.
Fair enough.
And I'm glad to say, like I was always with Henchie Taylor.
Yes.
And Shihan Tyson, and I always stayed with them even when everyone split back the first time everyone split, I stayed with them guys. But when I come back, the best thing for me was to go with obviously because I was training with Shihan Jordan, Darren Jordan. It was obviously to go with the guys with Chikara. Yeah. So that's where we are today. Yeah. And
fantastic. No, and that's I'm rubbing my getting the stretch there because that's a great amazing way to start leading towards what an amazing journey as such to that point, and then how you now got your son done, hustled your butt off, had a tough 9 years as such, but got through there. And now part of the Kyokushin family again, and with good people around you. And I guess we've got about 5 more minutes or so left, or more, about 5 to 10. But how this part now, Shihan, Sensei, is the bit that I'd like to talk to you about, because I love seeing you your social media posts as such, and your engagement and your involvement in how you're growing. And like you said, your dojo's now up to about 80 odd students, and you're in Newcastle. So there's a bit of a window here now in I guess, sharing with us how what your passion is towards this side of your journey now, and the chapter that you've got. So, the floor is yours in just sharing with us, your dojo as such, and the students that you're working with, and how you, I guess, you came through a, teenage, time of, like you said, mother, a single mother of 4, and that upbringing to what you're seeing today as such with a lot of the kids, and how you're influencing so many.
Yeah, so now probably the toughest fight of my life was that 9 years that I had off, but now I'm back, and you look in the past and you think like, how did I have that so long off? But until you experience that side of things, you don't know. But now I'm rejuvenated. I can still train my son. Like I train my older boy. He's an absolute weapon. The 17-year-old. He's just so technical. Like he plays the NPL level of soccer here, so he's just so gifted, like punching and kicking. But his mum won't let him fight. but my younger son, he's really talented too. And he's already been sparring in that. But now, bringing that up, now I'm gonna take my. I'm really happy enough to be able to train Connor, my youngest boy, and have that association, be able to share the mats with him. Yeah. And still be old enough and not be in that dark hole that I was. Be old enough and wise enough to pass some stuff down to him. He wants to fight. He's not old enough yet in New South Wales. He's got to be 14. He's only 13, but he wants to compete down the track. But that's what I miss the most is. Now I've got the dojo, and now I've got 80 students, and now before the COVID hit, I had about 5 adults ready to have a box.
Uh-huh.
And I've also got. I'll probably come down to Melbourne and see you guys soon. I've got a couple of boys. I haven't got really big karate classes at the moment. I'm building. It's something that the kickboxing's much easier to build. You'd understand, much easier to build kickboxing than it is boxing. Kickboxing is much easier than it is to build a Kyokushin base. Yeah. So I'm slowly getting there for Kyokushin, but I've got a couple of boys that are going to compete in Kyokushin as well. Awesome. And we'll probably bring them down to one of Shihan Judge's shows down there. But now my job now is to have my dojo as strong as like I used to have it, and train kids. Like that's the biggest thing that I missed was I've got these bunch of kids now. I've got about 50 kids, and mate, you just don't realise how much you missed out on, and how much. Obviously, I've got it now, but how awesome it is to just have that association. Right. I think all my best friends and all my closest friends are all through my martial arts, boxing, kickboxing journey. Yeah. My best mate, Michael Maisie's always been my best mate, and we started Kyokushin when we were both 13 and 14 years old. And we've never separated. We've been close and best mates and sparring partners, and we've had the highs and the lows together. But now the good part about it now is that I can build a couple of John Hallfords hopefully, and Michael Maisie's, and build these build these kids up to become champions, become fighters, and to show them that you don't have to be bullied, and you don't have to, and you can become something. It doesn't matter where you come from or what you do. If you put the hard work in, you will accomplish your dreams. And I think that's with all. And my foundation is when I got my black belt, I said there's one thing I got to get. I'm never a person for tattoos. I got the kanji on my chest. Yeah. I said that's Kyokushin is all. I realised where I come from. A lot of people sort of forget where they come from. Like not forget, but like I always praise Kyokushin because that's where I started. That's where I learned the discipline. That's where I learned how to become a champion. Yeah. Because I've done the best style in the world.
That's unreal. I'm going to share a story with you that you have no idea about, and I don't think I've shared it with anyone, to be brutally honest. I used to work with a couple of sporting brands, and I used to be in certain regional towns, and I went to Tamworth, and I was probably there in I'll give or take 2006 or 7. And so I got my showdown in 2006. So, I was just nestled into the Kyokushin family as such. And I was in a pub having my meal there in an evening because I was staying in Tamworth for a couple of nights. And there was a photo to the left of me, just above me, A4 size as such, strapping lad, hint, hint, he's looking at me now, with your gloves on and your tie shorts on, and you're in the ring. And I could see the kanji, but you know how it was something back then where for me, I was like, kind of felt, I was very naive, but I was thinking, I've never seen, who is that? I was like, geez, I thought I knew, I don't know who that is. And I had to ask, I went and said, can you tell me who that person is up there on the, and they said it was John Hallford, he was a local and so forth. And my sensei, or Shihan Polly, I said, Shihan, back then I couldn't take a picture and then, send it to Shihan and go, who's this?
Yeah.
And then so I came back to the dojo and I said, Shihan, I was in Tamworth the last couple of days. Have a look who I saw up on the wall. And he's like, oh man, look at that picture. Look at him. And then I said, who is that? And it was yourself. And ever since that day, Sensei, to be honest, I thought, have a look at this. What's this doing here in a town like this? And obviously with all the years that have happened, and then you being away for 9 odd as such, and then coming back, I was always looking forward to this conversation. So
yeah, thanks, mate. It was,
yeah. So you're massive.
It's a pleasure.
You're a massive influence, and I appreciate so much you sharing a brief, take on getting us inside, that journey that you had as an amazing pro fighter, and the journey that you had in starting Kyokushin. Because I'll tell you what, it's influenced me a lot, and it will for a long, long time. And I'm sure everyone that's listening that gets a chance, and the community that you're building, Sensei, mate, keep it up. It's fantastic. I always like your posts as such in supporting what you're doing, because to build another handful of John Hallfords in the next 5 to 10 years, well, shit, stand by, as I say, stand by to get some, because that's going to be unreal.
Yeah, that's the exciting thing for me now. Is I've come to terms with I can't compete, and that's just the way it is because of age. But I've come to terms with that I'm going to produce fighters now, and I don't have to be a fighter.
A tip from my end, and please, on a level of respect, is when I stopped competing as well, the difference, and I shared it with someone else, is no, I'm not on the mat anymore as such, but I am. And I learned that from Shihan Billy, because Shihan Billy had that as well, but he had us coming through, and he's like, as much as I'm not, we're not on the mat, I am right there with you. And I love sharing that with my guys, because the best part of attending tournaments for me now, or preparing the lads for whatever competition is, I can't wait. I can't wait to be on the edge of the mat with them, because I'm either going to be there for the first round or they progress. And then some nights or some days I'm there for 12, 15 bouts. If I've got 4 fighters in 3 rounds and the final, I'm fighting 15 times as such in the day. And I just...
Oh, yeah. I know how it feels.
I visualize it that way.
Yeah, also exactly. And I've got a great mentor now in Sharon Darren Jordan. He's become one of my best friends, and one of my closest friends. And he's great for me, because he really respects and really gives me positive feedback when it comes to how I was respected, and how what I've done has changed lives, and what I've done is obviously you can't do it forever. You're a 40, 46, 47-year-old, and I'm still moving around the boys, but obviously not to the extent where and Shihan Darren's been great in educating me.
That's cool.
Yeah, how there's the dojo after. There's a dojo after fighting. He graded my son, so I owe a lot to Darren Jordan for getting me back to where I am today. And I've got some great friends around, like obviously Michael Maisie, and there's another gentleman that's just about to go for his showdown, Dean Bayless, which lives here in Newcastle.
I know Dean.
Yeah,
Dean's legend. Good stuff.
Yeah, and Dean's been. I trained Dean nearly his whole fighting career, and all these people are just great influences around me now, and it just helps me understand that you can't be a fighter forever, like as much as you want to be. It's like just a quick one now, just poor John Wayne Parr. I feel so sorry for him at the moment, because he's trying to make that transition. And they just said that
and this is how much of a legend he is. They just said to him, mate, your hip can explode in any fight.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter. He said at any time it can just explode, and you know what? He's going to take that. He's going to take that risk, mate. He's just signed another fight deal. It's really like, unless you're right, and you understand because you're a fighter. It's sometimes it's really difficult to make that transition.
Yeah.
But we'll all do it, and we'll all get there. But sometimes it just takes people a little bit longer than others, and I think it's, as you said, it's the people around you.
You've just gestured it. Yeah, you've got to have good in all things, and again, in sharing this, you know, from your angle as well. You know, there'll be people, and please comment, you know, to Sensei here as well, you know, and just in support, and that's energy. I use the vernacular of it's energy out, energy in, as such, right? And you know, just getting that good positive energy makes the world of a difference, you know. And
it makes a whole lot.
And having Shihan Darren or Shihan Judd in your corner. I've got my Shihans and so forth. And it's like, and if the chips are down, or if there is that moment of, you know, what's the go? No, just see those lads that you're producing, and what, you know, they are a reflection of you. You know, I used to get that pressure from Shihan Billy as well. You're a reflection of me as well. So then, you know, the pressure goes to them as well in achieving what you've achieved.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, mate, if I can make a couple of me, I'll be stoked. And that's wholly and solely my job as a sensei and as a boxing trainer or a kickboxing trainer is to have my guys 100% ready when they step through them ropes or they step onto the mat. So that's my job now, and I've come to terms with it, and I'm loving it. And,
well done.
And I just hope this bloody COVID virus gets over and done with so we can get back into it.
Yeah, no, well done. You know, fantastic, and good on you, and well done. And I thank you so much for your time. The floor is yours for a couple of minutes if you wanted to share anything with anyone. If not, you know, go for it.
Yeah, no, I'd just like to thank all my students. Hopefully, I'll get some details off you. So I'm not a big technology man, but I'd probably like my students to maybe listen to this, and when you get it ready, and I'd like to thank all my students, and obviously a big thanks goes out to my kids for inspiring me. That's like with their sport, and my oldest boy, he's just I'll come down and go to work at 7 o'clock in the morning and be down on the kitchen table studying, and then my other little boy, he's jumping in there sparring other kids his same age, and absolutely look at $1 million. And obviously, and a big one is my wife. Without her, like I'd be nothing. Like she's the backbone of she runs our family. I've done what I've done, but she's a world champion when it comes to a mum and a wife and a really good one. And obviously the man that got me back into it. I got influenced by my best mate, which was Michael Maisie, but Shihan Darren Jordan. I started traveling in 2 hours, a 4-hour round trip just to start training again, because I had to get back to where I had to get back. John Hallford was just a shadow of himself, so he had to travel over to Parks and was lucky enough to. It's so lucky enough to have Shihan Darren Jordan 2 hours, an hour and a half away, and and to train with him, and just to hear some of his stories and become really good, not just my Shihan, but become really good mates.
That's awesome.
And he's inspirational, and that's what I'm going to be now for my students, and that's the whole. And the good part about it is that it's all come from my Kyokushin background. That's where you get your discipline. That's where you get your the art of Kyokushin. Until you do it, you can't really fathom it totally. But that's what I've got to build now in Newcastle is another really good foundation for karate. Yeah.
Good on you, Sensei. Absolute honour. Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks so much for sharing, your highlights as such and all the above. And to everyone out there, what an inspirational person he is, and he's becoming as well. So well done. Thank you for sharing everything to us. Big us from me. I'm sure Shihan Billy would say big us as well. I was talking to him earlier saying you're on, and he was like, please say to John Hallford a big us from Shihan Billy, and I'm sure everyone else.
Oh, please say good day to Shihan for me, and thanks very much for giving me the time, and we will look forward to catching up in Melbourne.
Us. I can't wait. Big us. Thank you, Sensei. Us.
Us.